Hey there, hi there, ho there. Welcome back. Let's talk about flooding. It's good to see y'all. Um, when I think people think of flooding, they think of a lot of water, and when they think of a lot of water, they don't think of the desert. I don't blame them. However, this isn't something that happens elsewhere. This is actually something that happens in almost every state. In fact, the floods happen in every state, including in Arizona. Including in Arizona. So just because we're in a desert and we think we don't have water, oh, we can get floods. So let's jump into this, shall we? So let's go through some of the basics. Flooding is just defined as an overflowing of water onto land that's normally dry. Go figure. They can occur quickly, they can happen very rapidly, come out of nowhere, or they can kind of build up over a long period of time, and they may last hours, days, weeks, or sometimes even longer. Floods are the most common and widespread of all weather-related natural disasters. When you think of other natural weather-related natural disasters like hurricanes and tornadoes, those can kind of be more specific in locations, but floods can happen in pretty much anywhere. In the U.S., floods kill more people each year than tornadoes, hurricanes, or lightning. On if you take on average, has there been some big hurricane events that killed thousands of people? Yes, but when you kind of average that out over a long period of time, floods on average kill more people than tornadoes, hurricanes, or lightning. Interesting to think about. Sometimes when it rains, you get a flood. Sometimes you don't. How does that happen? Why does that happen? It has to deal with the soil. It has to deal with the amount of moisture already in the soil. Let's say, for instance, if it rains or if flood waters flood over an area and the soil, the ground is unsaturated, well, that water or rain or precipitation can sink in. It's when you get saturated soil, the ground is kind of soaked up as much water as it can. You put more precipitation on top of that, or you put some flood waters on top of that. That's where you're going to get your flood. This also might occur even when it's dry, but if the soil is just so compact, it's just so hard and compact that there's no place for the water to kind of soak into. That is also common here in Arizona. This is looking at the flood fatalities of last year, 2021. You can see 146 in total. Most of them coming around the summer months tied to summer thunderstorms causing floods. But you can get them any time of the year. Tends to be more male deaths than female. The vast majority, activity-wise, tends to be driving. Most deaths due to flooding occurs to driving. People driving into flooded areas think they can pass through. They can't. They get swept away. That's where the unfortunate bulk of the fatalities lie. The others are at home. Just at home. They don't want to leave, can't leave, end up dying. Floods no age range. Unfortunately, you can get kids dying just as much as you can adults. And this is from last year. This is if we looked at all of those deaths. This is where they're occurring from. Tennessee number 1, New Jersey close number 2, New York 3, Arizona coming in 4th. It looks like Arizona coming in 4th. If we look at the previous decade, 2010 to 2020, as far as flood fatalities, these are deaths. Texas definitely leads that charge. That was a lot of those were due to various hurricanes that flooded the coast. Some different surge flooding that flooded the coast. You can see Arizona is kind of up there, but almost every state has some sort, at least in this 10-year period, had some sort of fatality, with the exception of a few up here: New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island. There's no specific season for floods. There's no flood season, but it can happen at any time of the year. But most flooding does occur in the U.S. from spring to fall, so spring, summer, and fall. If flooding happens in the early spring, it's usually areas near to locations that received heavy snowfall, and then that snowfall from the wintertime, accumulated up, and then it melts, causing flooding. So early spring, you get snow melt. So if you're in a place where there's a lot of snow, that snow melt, if that melts very quickly, can get flooding. So early spring floods are usually caused by snow melt. So kind of getting to later spring into summer, now you're getting into kind of the spring summer thunderstorm season that can bring heavy rains to many areas. The monsoon in the southwest U.S. By the way, the monsoon only exists in the southwest U.S. That's just in the southwest. Well, I take that back. There's monsoons elsewhere in the world, but when we think of monsoon, yeah, it only happens in like New Mexico, Arizona, parts of Mexico. No, it's just nowhere else in the country gets it. More on that in a later unit, FYI. Flash floods due to these thunderstorms that can just dump a bunch of water. Flash floods are typical during this season. And then kind of getting into late summer and fall, coastal areas, can be affected by flooding during this time due to tropical storms and hurricanes coming in on land. And that's not always the case, kind of just usually, but again, there's no specific flood season. It could happen all year. Flooding occurs in every U.S. state and territory. Obviously, it's more likely to occur in areas which have seasonal rainstorms, Arizona, have flood prevalent topography like in deserts, because the desert dirt soil is just so compact the water can't soak in, like in Arizona, or a location along the coast. Those are the areas which you're more likely to have flooding. And just to go back a few slides, let's see here. Yep, so along the coasts, or along the coasts, along the coast, along the coast, deserts, or a lot of rain. So, makes sense. Sorry. So here's the United States. These are all the major rivers in the United States. Rivers can flood. It's a particular type of flood called a river flood. So there's a lot of water already in the U.S. And if you add just a little bit more to it via some precipitation, rain or snow even, you add a little bit of precipitation to the water that's already there, it's going to flood. It's going to flood. So this is the last about month or so prior to when I made this video. As you get up into the reds and purples, then it indicates inches of precipitation. So a lot of precipitation, a lot of rain and snow. As you get down to the greens and blues, not so much. So you can see in kind of the Kentucky, Tennessee area, you get a lot of rain in this past 30 days, as well as up into Washington and Oregon. So let's look at current flood levels. So the next map is going to look at current flood levels. Black indicates current flood levels. Oh, go figure. Around Kentucky and Tennessee. Oh, go figure. Washington and Oregon. So the more precipitation, the more likely it is to flood. So here's Arizona. We have plenty of waterways as well. Some major rivers too flowing through and on the boundaries of Arizona. Again, people think Arizona, dry desert. Yeah, but there's still a decent amount of water out there. So looking at a current, at least at the time when I made this video, a current flood map of the state, not so much. So this talks about stream flow and at what percentage the amount of water flowing through that stream, through that river. So less than 95%, 95 to 98%, greater or equal to than 99%, or river is flooded. So there's no black, no floods, no even blues, but there's a little bit of teal down here by Yuma. But for the most part, every other river that's monitored in Arizona, currently, no floods. Yeah, we haven't really had any precipitation in a while, major amounts of precipitation. But as we get into spring and it starts to warm up and Flagstaff's up in this area, as that snow melts, I'm guessing, you'll start to see some flooding in Arizona. Before we do, let me give you part of the super secret code. It is the number 3. One more time, the number 3. So again, floods can happen almost anywhere. They can happen during heavy rains, when ocean waves come on the shore, when snow melts too fast, or even when dams or levees break, whether that happens on their own or that's caused by some sort of miscalculation by humans. In any case, those are just some basics of flooding. When we'll come back, we'll talk about the different types of floods. There's actually 4 different types of floods. So we'll kind of talk about those, break those down when we come back. See you then.